Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cameramen Show. My name's Kartik.
I'm Manav.
And in this podcast, we talk about all things weddings, cameras, and business. Today's topic's interesting because I want to rant. I always like to rant. I want to rant about award-winning photographers. And obviously, if you guys are more, clients as opposed to photographers or couples, you may not be interested in this episode. But if you're photographers, tune in because I think this one you might...
No, I think clients would be interested in this as well because a lot of the times clients would book photographers based on whatever it says on the bio or whatever, right?
That is true.
And if a bio says award-winning photographer, the client might want to book them more or whatever.
We'll get into this. But I want to start by sharing a story that I had when I lived in UK for a year. I won't drop any names, but basically I was invited to come and capture a bridal expo, and UK is incredibly famous for holding a lot of these bridal expos. In Australia, I don't think too many we have them here, especially within the South Asian scene. But so I went. But before that, I got asked to second shoot for a separate studio. Now, the problem with this is that I'm there to build my own brand. And so I'm like, would I really do this? I don't know. So I got into contact with the studio who wanted me to second shoot for them. And I get a number. A number calls me and pick up. I'm like, hello. And they go, hi, my name is XYZ. And I'm calling on behalf of XYZ. And I'm not obviously going to drop names. However, this person was the wife of the actual photographer. So there's a studio owned by a particular photographer. And rather than him calling me, his wife calls me. And I think that person's like the business admin
manager
person,
or something.
Manager or some shit. There are some studios who do that.
Yeah,
if it works, it works, whatever. Yeah. So then she calls me and I'm like, hi, how's it going? And the first thing
I'm not going to lie, before you go forward, I would never be able to do that.
What do you mean?
Having my wife as my manager. I just feel like it's weird. You know why? Because I feel like to function in and I mean, obviously I could be wrong. This doesn't apply to everyone. But just in my instance, I feel like it's good when she has her own thing or has my own I have my own thing. Then we come in the evening, we meet together to discuss about how was your work day, whatever. Imagine just working with your other half the whole time.
I think
you literally would spend 24/7 with your other half.
Yeah, it's a bit weird because I'm also on that notion you should not always work with your partner.
Yeah,
I think it's a bit weird, but I think this business model worked because his wife was actually a marketing manager before they got together. So she's got skills and experiences that he doesn't have. She also has a way with clients. Now, I'm not saying that everyone should now involve their partners in their wedding photography business. No. But if your wife can bring to the table something that you can't, or you're not interested in doing, or you're not even good at, it may work. But do I agree with the fact that you should always have a bit of separation from your partner and your work? Otherwise, you're going to constantly be in contact with each other? Yeah. Sometimes it might not work. But anyways, I digress. So the first thing this person does is say to me, so have you heard of XYZ? And by XYZ, she dropped her partner's name and the brand studio name. Now, as a dick, I said, no, I haven't.
Oh, I had.
You had?
Well,
I'm going to research anyone who's going to ask me to second shoot.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no.
But were you starting shit, bro?
I don't give a fuck. I'm like, you know what? Have you heard of Case Creative Photography? No. Bro, if you haven't heard of me, why the F am I going to hear you? Anyways, so she's like, have you heard of XYZ? And I said, nah. And I said it like that. Because I was already a bit pissed that this entire situation happened, that I'm there to do collaborative work and I'm there to do it for free. I can't even shoot for myself, which is also bothering me, right?
Hold on. So you are at an expo.
Correct.
Trying to collaborate with who?
No. I'm at an expo to just do free work so that...
For who though?
For the expo owner.
Oh, so you're collaborating with the expo owner.
But the expo owner goes to me, you'll be shooting under XYZ brand, who's an already affiliated photographer there.
Okay.
0 cents.
Okay.
Now, this happens to me a couple of days before the actual expo. So I'm kind of what's the word? Blindsided. I'm blindsided because...
So, before we move forward, you've booked this thing for free, whatever.
Free, yeah.
In advance, you have no idea that you're shooting for someone else. According to you, you're just going there, taking photos of the expo or whatever's happening.
Under my own
and
banner.
then you can post that under your...
Yeah, and then
And was that communicated to you by the expo person?
No. So several weeks prior They said, yep, we'd love for you to collaborate. You can just get tagged and credited.
Okay.
3 days prior, they're like, oh, sorry, just to let you know, you'll actually be shooting under XYZ. And I'm like, hang on.
Oh, shit. Okay.
No, I'm not. So then they call me the next day. So 2 days now out from the event. And they're like, oh, so, the wife calls me up. Have you heard of us? And I'm like, nah. I'm already pissed at this point because you're now telling me that I'm shooting for free and I don't even get any accreditation for it. Well, what's the point of this?
And then you have to shoot for someone else.
Yeah, correct. And their entire takeaway, so for the expo owner, was like, oh, you can network. I'm like, bro, if I wanted to network, I'll just DM people. I don't give a shit about this. Like, it doesn't serve me any purpose. So then, going back to the story, have you heard of us? And I'm already pissed now knowing all of this in mind. And I'm like, nah. No, I'm sorry, I haven't.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and she's like, oh, well, okay, well, just so you know, that's what she said. She's like, just so you know, XYZ is a Canon branded ambassador who's won multiple awards and has been nominated for XYZ Photographer of the Year and has done XYZ Wedding of the Year.
Can you imagine if there's only one Canon ambassador in the UK and even though you're not saying their names?
Like that person hears the story, be like, who the fuck do you think you are to share this story? Yeah, look, so that's a bit orkies, but do I really care at this point?
Yeah.
No. Is them finding out going to do anything to my entire career? No. So I don't give a shit.
Okay.
Anyways, so then she's like, basically begins to read this resume off of this person in front of me or over the phone. And I'm like, la-di-da-di-da, in my head, right? I was like, I don't give a shit. I really just don't. And so she's like, so you've never heard of us? I was like, no. And in my mind, I'm like, I know exactly who you guys are. I did my research, of course. I'm like, nah, I haven't. She goes, okay, well, we'd like you to second shoot petty, for us. Bro. I don't give a fuck, bro. I don't give a fuck. If my mind, I don't give a shit, bro. I don't give a shit. Like if I'm there to shoot for somebody else who is now saying that the first thing that you should do is know of us because we've won awards, go fuck yourself. And that's what this entire podcast episode's all about.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So she, all right. So she, let me get this right. So she tells you. She gives you a resume off with a
reads out his his accolades, his achievements,
this award, that award,
this award,
and then what did you say to that? Like,
I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great, no worries.
And did you ended up shooting for this person?
So
like
I
the
said
little
yes.
bitch you are.
Yeah. So like the little bitch that I am, I said, yeah, sure, I'll do this. So I said yes to it.
Yeah.
The next day I changed my mind because I'm like, what the F am I doing?
Yeah.
Which also is bad. I acknowledge I messed up there.
Yeah.
So then I messaged that studio saying, I can't do this. And like, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And then they weren't happy because they're like, oh, you're canceling us last minute. And in my mind, I'm like, well, bro,
what do you
I'm
mean?
not
like you're just another person there anyway. Like they already
bro, they would have had somebody else. Yeah, which they did.
Yeah.
And then I never, like, I ever since I bumped into them in the industry, it's always been a bit like, tense. It's like, oh, hello, how you doing? Like, it's very, very awkward.
Yeah.
But the point of that story is to segue into where we decided, Manav and I, to come and talk about awards, accolades, photographer of the year, wedding photographer of the year, all of these like titles that people happen to sort of win sometimes and can create this, I'm going to say one side of it is a false reality, level of delusion, but on the other side could add to a level of credibility. What are your thoughts?
It's almost like an ego complex, isn't it? Like it's like where you're, I won a certain award, so I'm better than everyone else, right? But I do see where you mean, what you mean when you say credibility, because I feel like to someone who's got no idea about like any awards or whatever. Now imagine you're a client, you're going and looking at someone's bio and says winner of whatever award,
winner of most recognized top world photographer
whatever,
in the world.
Right, whatever. Yeah, so
whatever
it
the
is,
Institute of XYZ. Yeah,
that would make maybe a couple feel like, oh, like these guys are legit. You know,
they're not going to screw me over. They know their shit.
Yeah. So I can see it from both ways. How, mind you, like. There's so many fucking awards these days that it's even hard to even keep up. Like who's winning what award?
I can
create an award and give it to you, and then you can put that in your bio. Yeah.
Award from Manav.
Yeah, Manav's best photographer of the month award.
who entered just one person?
Yeah, just one person. Yeah. Like so, it's very even. It's like it's extremely hard to like keep on top of these things. Like okay, so when I think about awards that kind of like matter, right? I always think of like some sort of a committee, right? Which is experienced. So I would say like maybe like the best 3 or 4 photographers in the world or in that area, whatever. They sit down, they look at images or whatever, and then they review, and then they give someone an award, right? But that process in itself is so expensive. Imagine like trying to get like 3 or 4 people to come out and judge stuff in the first place, right?
Which is why that I know that in order to be part of these competitions, you also have to pay money for it.
Yeah.
But you have to be, I don't know if you have to be invited, but you have to submit stuff. Sometimes for some of these competitions, you have to pay for an entry against hundreds, if not thousands of photographers who have all of these submissions. And I have to question whether the result of being prized as a winner does what for you and does what for a client. Like, yeah, to your point, credibility, right? Like, and yeah, to your point, it represents a legitimacy of your business. And a reference that comes to mind right now is there's a photographer who I love in this space. Shout out to Sam Hurd. He is a wedding photographer based abroad. And in his bio, and I've never seen anyone write this before, maybe they have, but his bio specifically states winner of 0 awards. And I love that about him, because then I look at his work, and as a photographer, so fair enough, I'm biased, but I look at his work and the bloke's got talent. Like, he's got some skill here, and he's doing shit that I know I couldn't do. And I can vouch for the fact that other photographers probably couldn't do this either. But he's recognized, in my opinion, at least this is what I take from that, he knows he's never won an award. Does that make him a shit photographer? No. The bloke's going in there going, I've obviously been doing this for years. Look at my portfolio. And I'm going to take the piss about it, because you know what? Other photographers are here shouting out that, I've done this, I've done that. All right, cool. Good for you, man. Happy for you. But what does that realistically mean? So I get that photographers can look at this and go, no, you don't understand. Like, it shows that I'm legit. But then I also get the other side of it going, well, if I don't have a award, does that make me a shit photographer?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I really like that he has that in his bio, that he's winner of 0 awards. At the same time, competition fosters inspiration. Right?
What do you mean by that?
It just the way I look at it is that, like, if you enter into awards, right, and you're going to compete with other photographers in that award category or whatever, looking at their photos, looking at the award or whatever, like, it gives you more inspiration to get better as a photographer, right? Now, obviously, this doesn't happen all the time. Like, it could be like you could be part of like some shitty award that's not going to go anywhere. But I'm talking about like the legit awards at this point. You could come across a photo that you would have never ever seen elsewhere being part of that kind of a competition, because generally photographers do submit like the best of their best work to these kind of competitions, right? So when you're looking at a photo and then you're like, oh shit, I want to create that now, like, because that looks so cool. So I can also see the benefits of being a part of such a competition, right?
Yeah. I know that there are categories to this as well. Like, I've actually never gone and submitted my work for competition. I don't know if you have or anything, but I know that there are categories to this, like best natural light photographer versus best artificial light photographer. I know there's elements to different areas here, right? And so I can see how putting yourself in a basket of 100 other photographers who are submitting their work makes you critique your own work and go, is this really good enough? Like, do I have what it takes to be qualified to put my work in?
But then isn't the whole, like, the wonderful thing about being a photographer or any sort of art is just so subjective.
Yeah.
Right. So then if you want to put yourself into like categories and then be like, oh, am I good enough? Whatever. Like, you might not be good enough for one client, but you might be good enough for another client.
Because imagine if I go to you, hey, I'm submitting this, like, I get your feedback. Say I'm going for a competition for the world's best South Asian wedding photography in Australia, right? Just assuming that something like that even exists. And I find this photo and I'm like, bruh, this is a banger shot. Like, this one is the shot. And I submit this photo and I go, bro, look at this. And you look at it and go, bro, what the fuck's... Brother, like, what the fuck is that, right?
Yeah.
And you look at this and go, I think you've done better work before. But then I'm like, bro, what do you mean? Like, this is really good. I can automatically see how the biggest challenge that I think exists with competitions as such is how do you judge the validity of something that, to your point, is so subjective, but when you're bringing on judges from all around the world who also have a particular way of shooting, who have a particular style, that are now looking at this photo and going, this is good. Because I went down the rabbit hole of going, okay, well, this photographer's wife is contacting me. Let's check this person out. I have to second shoot for this studio from the Brand Expo who lined all of this up for me. Let's see what this person does. Did I like what I see? No. Was it something that I was impressed by? No. Was this something that I think is modern? No. For me personally, it was very dated. It was a very, I'm not going to say old school, but I think it sits and suits a clientele that likes that sort of style of photography. Bro, I've been sent shit that like is a bit more trending, like, blurry shot photos, right? Like shots of, couples out of focus. And arguably I'm like, okay, this is something that's kind of in. Could I see this photographer doing that? Not really. I really couldn't. So I get that, yes, it fosters creativity. And I get that, yes, it puts you in an environment to go, I'm going to level up because like these people are now encouraging me to be the best and be better than what I could be. But if we're looking at the judging criteria of all of that, all of these things are very subjective at the end of the day anyways. Like you said, right, there are judges here all across the world. There are different photographers who look at our work and go, but like, that's great, but I think this one's better. But then
surely, like, I totally understand where you're coming from, but surely like putting that in your bio has to do something for you where it helps you get more clients. Because another thing I can think of, which is very similar to awards, is like some photographers put like featured in Vogue or something similar, right? Like in the wedding industry, you see a lot of photographers that have in their bio, we're in Vogue, we're in this magazine, whatever. Now, if you put yourself in like a bride's shoes, a bride just coming checking your thing and she's like, oh, this photographer's been featured in Vogue.
They may not know about a global photography competition summit that photographers are frothing over to be in, but they might know about featured in Vogue weddings.
Like a magazine, yeah.
That's interesting.
So now imagine like you're just coming there and you look at that, like obviously that kind of like puts you, well, hey, what does that make you feel as a client, right? This person's going to be expensive to hire because they've been featured in Vogue, right? They're probably expensive. They've been doing it for a long time. That's why, right?
This person is trusted.
Yeah.
Because if Vogue...
Trusted and probably like high-end.
Yeah.
Because that's something that you would associate with like a high-end photographer, right?
Sure. Yeah. Like if Vogue publishes something that this photographer has done, you must be good. Like you must be doing shit that probably is actually really qualified. To be featured by a premium magazine that shows the best of the best weddings around the world is no small feat. It's a big deal. I know I haven't been featured by Vogue. I don't know if you've been featured by Vogue, and there are hard photographers who are. I think the part where, yes, that's something to put out, or it's no different from like not even Vogue, but say Sabyasachi, right? For anyone who don't know who Sabyasachi, it's a South Asian clothing designer who have a page for brides of Sabyasachi. It's a big deal to get on there. It's like, oh, okay, cool. You've done something, right? It's being recognized by an international designer. That's an achievement. That is an accolade where you've like, I've been recognized by a third party. And because of that, it adds to credibility. I think there's a difference between a third party being a wedding publishing company or a clothing designer versus a photography competition where photographers submit their photographs for entry, because they're both coming at different perspectives here. One of them, right, one subcategory is looking at it from how glamorous a wedding was, how grandiose the wedding was, albeit still subjective, but different, how beautifully it was captured, also still subjective, but it has a different lens, excuse the pun, on that approach. Another one is looking at it from the clothing aspect of, oh, well, my clothes are featured. I want to put this on my brand and my page. But the other side is going, we just want to see what the skill of this photographer is. It's got nothing to do with the wedding. It's more about the shot. You know what I mean? And so I think there's a difference in the approach when we look at it from a lens of going, Vogue or Sabyasachi or any other clothing designer published our stuff, or Junebug Weddings reshared our gallery because it was a great wedding and couples loved it, versus, hey, I'm voted number 1 in all of Southeast Asia for being the leading photographer.
And another problem that comes with this Vogue thing being overly always saying that I'm featured in this, I'm featured in that, is that now I have a story, right, where I shot a wedding. I was a videographer in Sydney, so local. Now, this couple got a photographer from a different country, right, who had like this featured in Vogue, this, that on their profile, right? Now, these guys had very high expectations. Now, first of all, if you're flying in a photographer from a different country to shoot your wedding, and mate, Sydney's in the fucking middle of nowhere. So if you're flying someone
basically whoop whoop, guys.
Yeah. So if you're flying someone into Australia, from either Europe or whatever, like I'm not gonna say where it's from, right? From, let's say from Europe, yeah. You're flying someone in from Europe. That's a long ass flight, and that's gonna be expensive for you to to buy the tickets or whatnot. Now they flew someone in from Europe, right? And the guy rocked up here with a camera which didn't even have like dual card slots.
Oh, a bit risky.
Right, which is kind of risky. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, normally when we shoot weddings, we have two card slots, two memory cards recording all photos or videos simultaneously into the camera. So in case one SD card fails, you'll always have your photos in the second card or whatever. Right? And it has saved me in the past, like once. Where one of my slots for some reason didn't record, even though it was on dual, but all the photos were in the second card.
So he rocks up with the camera with one
card slot, right? Which is fine. It is what it is. Like, you want to be risky, that's your thing. Now, this photographer, now, you know how we have like multi-day weddings that we shoot? Let's say like a Sangeet event or mind you, this photographer, I don't have any issues with. They've been very nice to me throughout the whole thing. I'm just putting this from like a bride's perspective, what she felt like throughout the whole thing, right? I got along, we shot the whole wedding, it was fine, they went back, whatever, right? Like, they were good to work with. But this photographer comes along, and mind you, it's like a Sangeet function, which is like a party, right? Which happens like prior to your wedding and reception day. They're sitting around, they're taking photos and then just sitting around for like 10-15 minutes at a time, not doing anything, right?
So bizarre,
right?
For a South Asian wedding, you're fucked.
Yeah, so this person's basically taken like, you know, a few photos here and there, then they just sit down for like 10-15 minutes, a few photos here and there, they'll just sit down another 10 minutes, right?
Oh no.
To a point where the bride, you could see on the day, she's getting pissed off. Like, she's getting shits. Like, he's like, we got you here for all the way from like fucking Europe, right? And you're not even doing your work, right? And what I got to find out why this happened is that back where he used to shoot, he doesn't do these small events. He only does the wedding and the reception. His team handles everything else.
Interesting.
Right? And now this is like a Vogue photographer, right? Which is like, so on the wedding day, they're going to do the shots or whatever. Yeah. But he just thought like this Sangeet or like all these other parties are beneath him.
He doesn't need to do it.
Yeah. So they sat around during this event and they did like minimal work, whatever. Like, I wouldn't say fuck all. I'm so
just enough to get the job done.
Just enough to get the job done, whatever. And which is like, and mind you, I'm talking about like a 300-400 people Sangeet, right? Like a Punjabi.
One photographer.
One photographer.
You're cooked, mate.
And that one photographer is just sitting around for like 10 minutes at a time.
You're cooked,
right?
Proper cooked.
So, like, that's another trap that the brides can fall into when they go for photographers that have like, you know, Vogue or whatever, this featured that in their bio, without doing proper research on either asking them questions. Hey, if you're coming here, are you guys going to have one photographer or two photographers? We have a really big event, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know,
so don't get complacent.
Yeah,
like,
do
your research. Just because someone has something in their bio, don't mean shit. And go on. Yeah,
and sorry, so just to complete that story, the photographer did the wedding, the reception, they went back, right? And the bride was like, I mean, normally, like, I never really get a bride just bitching to me about a photographer, right? Because I'm another vendor or whatever, right?
Yep.
She was legit just bitching about him the whole time.
Wow.
She was like, I can't believe we got a photographer from overseas and we're so unhappy with the results.
She was pretty pissed.
She was pissed. Yeah.
But what this teaches me is that there is one side of photography where to win an achievement, to win representation by a third-party organization, by a wedding publishing brand, by a clothing brand, or a competition, requires a level of credibility. I will give you that. I'm not saying anyone who wins an award, you're a shit fucker who just can't do shit or for shit. No, like, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying at this point, right, referring to your point, is I don't want it to bring upon complacency. And I think there are photographers, such as the one that contacted me, or whose wife contacts me, and I'm not saying they were complacent in that moment, but it brings upon an ego complex. It brings upon this attitude that makes you feel like I'm top shit. Now, you've won something, good on you. Good on you. You probably have a level of skill, especially if it gets voted on by a particular level of photographers, or like a panel, or even like a vote system with collective photographers. You've probably done something well, but don't let that get to your head. Like, just because you are well-renowned, you have interviews done by, you're probably an ambassador, does not mean that you take the piss for something small. And I'm sure that photographer goes, well, I don't usually do this. My team captured this, and this is how I run shit here. Okay, well, let's see what happened to you now. Like, this photographer got hated on by this couple. He probably did an average job at best, right? And now they're going, well, we've spent thousands of dollars in getting this person here, didn't really do too much, and it is what it is now. Did they perform on the wedding day, or was it just pretty minimal?
They're fine. I think they were fine on the wedding day, but not to a point where. Okay, how do I put this? It wasn't like something out of the ordinary. Like, you know, even the couple later on goes, "Oh, we should have just hired someone locally." Wow. So imagine that, like, all the money you spend in getting, and which is why it goes back to the point. It's very important to do your research on who you're booking and what they've done before, rather than just looking at like 20 of the best photos they posted on like Instagram or something, and then being like, oh, okay, so this guy went to like fucking, you know, Mexico and did this epic wedding, so my wedding's gonna look like that, right?
Yeah, I think it creates a false hope. Like, there are brides who can get carried away, and you know what? I think it goes both ways here. I don't think the ego complex happens just for the photographers. I actually think it happens for the bride and grooms.
Yep.
I think they go, oh, actually, I've had it said. I've been in UK and I've had family members of the bride and groom come up to me and go, oh, you're the Australian photographer we've heard so much about. And I'm like, what do you mean? They go, oh, the bride and groom have been saying so many wonderful things about you because, you know, you're abroad, you're not from here. And I get that sometimes the accolades and the achievements are like bragging rights, not from the couple, not from the photographer, but from the couple. Oh, our photographer's won the Australian Award of the Year for the best photographer. Oh, our photographer's won the best Southeast Asian photography award of the year. Mind you, do your guests give a shit about this?
Yeah.
No, they don't give a fuck about this. All they care about is, can this person do a good job? What does an award matter if you can't carry out your service? You know what I mean? Like, just because you win something does not mean that you're actually going to rock up and perform. You just won something. And maybe the context also matters here. Maybe you put in so much effort for what you won, as soon as you come away from that, you take your foot off the pedal and you're like, cool, I've won something.
Does that make
now.
you sound dated though? Like, if you have like award, does that mean that, is that what it means? Like, so if you have a award winning photographer in your bio, is that like something that now most people
you know what, say for instance you won an award, a legitimate award,
yeah,
in 2014. We're now 2024 here.
Yeah.
You reckon that shit matters now?
Yeah.
No. But say you won an award
as you grow older, you change a lot. Your style changes. Everything changes, right?
How can you say to me that what recognized for in 2015 I still do?
Yeah.
You can't. Because if you're not growing every year as a photographer to level up in somewhat skill, bruh, you're complacent and you're doing the same shit.
I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to your portfolio. Like, awards are really, other than what we've already talked about, like some people might go and look at our award-winning photographer. And mind you, this ties back into how many followers you have as well on Instagram, which we talked about in an earlier episode, right? That if you have like, you know, 50,000 followers on your Instagram, you're more likely to get hired than like if you have like 5,000, for example, right?
Yeah.
So it is there, like, where a bride might look at you and be like, oh, this guy has won awards or whatever.
The way
ultimately, the final thing I think always matters is what your portfolio looks like, rather than how many awards you've won, right?
The way I see it, it's like a cake, right? There's levels and icings, so the tiers to this, right? Your base will always...
Right, go for it.
Bro, hear me out.
This guy's analogies, bro.
Fuck it. No. The base layer of the cake, the core of the cake, you with me?
Yeah.
Is your consistent portfolio. Shit that you've done for the last however many years. The next, like, tier of the cake. I know you're judging the fuck out of me. Fuck you. The next tier of the cake are
see where this goes.
Are the smaller things, right? So you start a podcast, you start a YouTube channel, you start a Patreon service. You build upon that to go, okay, I'm not just this, I'm now that plus this. And then the third and final tier are like the little polishing things. You know, the little decorative pieces on cakes that you're like, oh, that's nice to have. Oh, that's pretty cool. And, you know, fucking cherry on top. Literally cherry on top. It's like, oh, it just completes the cake. The cherry on top here is, oh, I just won Global Award Winner of the Year. Like, cherry on top.
So you're basically saying that shouldn't be the main thing that people consider? Like, that's just like something that, like...
If you take the cherry on top away, level with me here.
Yeah.
If you take the cherry on top away, does the cake mean it's shit? No, a cake still has like some level of validity. But are people going, the cherry on top is the best part? You're fucking cooked.
Yeah.
If you think that the cherry on top is all that matters, you're an idiot. And anyone who thinks that, you're also an idiot. Yeah.
Somehow you managed to make sense of that.
Yeah, 100. I know you look at me going, this person's cooked as well.
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, that's fucking right. If you guys enjoyed that metaphor, comment. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Or if you guys have like a part or a story or a fucked up situation where awards are like, oh, so here's a funny one. Email.
Or if you've hired like a photographer in the past, or you know someone that's hired a photographer who's like, you know, been in Vogue or whatever, whatnot, and they totally fucked it up. Let us know as well.
I absolutely hate ego complexes. Forget photographers.
Yeah.
people with an ego, I'm not a fan of. And I know you and I know people of ego complexes who think they're something else, and in reality they don't know shit. Let us know a story.
Mind you, we might come across like that on this podcast sometimes. The way we talk,
it's like, what level of entitlement do we have
who the
to say that? Who the fuck are these guys?
Just talking shit about
other people. Look, call us out. I'm all for it because I like to be accountable. But if you guys enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, comment your favorite part, or email into us at thecameramensshow@gmail.com. And let us know if you have any stories about awards or fucked up situations with ego complexes with photographers, or maybe other vendors that you'd like us to react or hear about or read out aloud on this podcast. And we'll
see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.
Peace.